So with the holidays here, one of the things I always like to drink is eggnog. Now, growing up all my life, eggnog was really just you went to the grocery store, you brought it home, you drink it. It's thick. Those of you who never had it before, is basically you take eggs and cream and milk and nutmeg and sugar, and you mix it all up together. And the proper way, of course, is to pasteurize, is that way you don't get salmonella and da 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 da, and you know all that stuff. But this year, I decided I was going to make it at home. As I started looking up recipes, one thing I found very often was people tend to like to add alcohol into their eggnog, either rum or bourbon. So I thought to myself, why not? This will be a good opportunity for me to try some bourbon. There's some other recipes in the house we like to do, like bourbon chicken. We like to eat that when we go out to restaurants. It's got a nice flavor to it. Of course, the first thing I had to find out just was, what is bourbon anyway? So let's go ahead and start with that first. All right, so bourbon, the actual name is bourbon whiskey. In this case, what I'm going to be drinking today is what's called Black Eagle. This is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Now, first of all, most bourbon does come from Kentucky these days. It's Kentucky. It's kind of like, champagne comes from Champagne, France. Well, bourbon will typically come from Kentucky. Matter of fact, legally, bourbon can only come from the United States of America. Uh, it really kind of follows the history of this, really kind of follows the standard practice, which is people move to an area, they've got stuff there. The first thing someone, of course, has asked somewhere along the way is, hey, can we make beer out of this? In this case, it wasn't beer. In this case, it was take a plant, figure out how to make alcohol out of it. In this case, it was Kentucky, and what they used was corn. So there are actually laws that regulate what exactly is bourbon. So in 1964, Congress passed a law saying that bourbon whiskey must be made out of at least 51% corn, must be distilled to no more than 160 proof. That's 80% alcohol. I mean, that's insane right there. No coloring or flavoring may be added in. You've got to put it inside these charred oak barrels, and that's really what gives it the flavor more than anything else. I mean, the corn, yeah, as it turns into liquor and all the yeast eats away at it, but really, it's those oak charred barrels. It can be entered into the barrels at no more than 125 proof. It's now down to 62% alcohol, and it can't be bottled until it's not less than 80% proof, which is 40%. All right, so it goes from 80% alcohol to 60% when it goes in, roughly 60% inside the barrels, and then to 40% when it's put into the bottle itself. And it has to be aged for a minimum of 2 years to be called straight bourbon. Okay. Um, Matter of fact, if it's for a period less than 4 years, it has to have something labeling its age on there. So let's see if there's anything on here that talks about its age. Oh no, I don't see it on here. It's probably on the sticker somewhere that I just missed out on. So it does say it's a straight. So I'm going to assume that they follow the rules on this. And again, only whiskey produced in the United States can be called bourbon. All right, so like I said, how do we make it? You get your corn, mix it in with some rye or some wheat, you grind it up, put in your water, add your yeast, let it turn into alcohol, put in the charred oak, out comes the bourbon. All right, so I was looking up some instructions about how to drink this. So once again, we're going to be using our trusty Disney cup. It's not exactly a snifter. I know that you're supposed to be using a proper snifter for these things. It's kind of a curved glass, but I'm cheap. I haven't bought that stuff yet. So I'm going to take this, and you're supposed to put in roughly 1 finger width. So that should be about that much. Yeah, as you can tell, I'm not going to put a whole lot in here. It's got a very interesting smell to it. In fact, it's not even a smell of, oh my gosh, even this is, okay, there's a little bit of that, oh my gosh. Mainly because I can really smell that alcohol. Remember, this is 40% alcohol. Your typical beer, American-made beer, maybe like 5%, 8% if you're lucky. So this is wow, really strong stuff. But I can smell that char. Now, one of the other parts of the directions I read was that you should add in a few drops of water, room temperature water. Evidently, this is supposed to help it bouquet a bit. So let's add in, there we go, just a touch of water. Other people like to have it on the rocks. Some people like to have it like this. This is supposed to help open up the various smells and whatnot, and it doesn't smell bad. You can definitely smell that oak. You can smell that oakiness in there. All right. Now the next part is that you're supposed to sip it, let it rest upon your tongue, and meditate upon the taste of the bourbon. Yeah, that is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Um, I once tried scotch at a bat mitzvah, and boy, that stuff was like Listerine. This, okay, right there, I can taste a little bit of that Listerininess, that alcohol, but letting it just kind of sit on your tongue for a bit, letting it go, it does have this nice smoky kind of taste going on. You know, that oak, that those various things in there. It's very interesting. It's not something I don't think I'd be sitting around going, "Yes, I shall have my bourbon, James." But it is. It's interesting. I don't know if I'll finish this. I'll be honest. I really don't know. But I could see this becoming an acquired taste very easily. It's not exactly growing on me as I go down. The further I go down. Again, for me as a beer virgin, it's all about that massive amounts of alcohol. It kind of burns along the tongue, and you can taste it in the back of your throat, kind of going up. But let's try something else here. This is homemade eggnog. I did use cooked eggs. Basically, what I did is I followed a variant of an Alton Brown recipe. If you watch him on Food Network, this is where you put egg yolks and sugar on one side, and you mix all that up. On the other side, you put in some cream and milk, and you heat that up nice and hot, and then you slowly incorporate that into the egg yolks. The trick is like a spoonful here, mix it up, a spoonful there, mix it up. You don't want the eggs to cook. You want to gradually bring them up to temperature, and then by the end, you can mix it all up, add in your fresh nutmeg. In my case, I actually added in some cinnamon and a touch of vanilla, and when you're all done, it's 4 eggs, a pint of milk, I think it was a cup of cream, or half and half, no, cup of cream, pretty sure, and then nutmeg and so on and so forth. And then you add in 3 ounces of bourbon. So in a case, about a pint, so that's about four, you've got about 4 cups of fluid in there. So 3 ounces of bourbon is not much. So, okay, it's got that nutmeggy flavor like that. Mm. Yeah, I can, I mean, it's a lot stronger now that I've had drinks of it. But even in here, you drink, you taste the cream and the sugar and the nutmeg and, in my case, the cinnamon, the allspice I added in. But then you've got that little bit of a smokiness back at the throat of the bourbon. Mm, not bad. All right, so to all of you out there, happy holidays. And if you're another beer virgin like me, you might want to give bourbon a try. Cheers.